I'm cleaning this up in earnest because I'm getting ready to move it. I'm about to start on my sawmill shed. I mean, seriously, fixing to start drilling some holes, putting some posts in the ground. But I wanted to share a couple of things with you before I get started. A little bit of history. About 25 years ago, somewhere around that, through a strange set of circumstances, I found myself teaching high school. Now, I'm not teacher certified, but they had a lateral entry program, and they took all my hours as a contractor and all my hours as a builder and accumulated them all, and they put me on a certain pay scale, and it was all satisfactory and worked out all okay. What I was teaching primarily was construction. They put me teaching drafting. Now, that was a whole nother ball game because I had a little drafting. I know how to read blueprints. And this was around 2000. This is when personal computers was first coming out. The principal called me in, was talking to me, and he said, "What kind of computers you want?" And I said, "Well, what do I need computers for?" And he said, "Well, we're going to get you CAD so you can teach the kids CAD." Well, I had no idea what CAD was. It was sort of like this. I was on an airplane. I sit down beside this guy and, you know, trying to be friendly. And I said, "Well, what is it you do for a living?" He said he was in software. Well, I didn't want to ask a man. I didn't want to look foolish, but I didn't really know what he meant by software. Because when he said software, I'm thinking Tupperware, okay? So I really, you know, as far as being able to teach CAD, and I had no idea what CAD was at that time, but they had a student edition of CAD. So I was going to teach construction, I was going to teach business and industry, and I was going to teach drafting. It was a young men and a few young ladies that came into my class were not what you might say at that time destined for college, if you know what I mean. I really don't know if these guys learned much in my class, but I felt like that there were some things that I was going to be teaching them that was going to be vital, because what I was interested in doing after seeing who they were and where they were academically wise, I needed to try to help them, if I could, prepare them for earning a living, to be productive members of society. And I guess, truth be known, they probably taught me more than I taught them. It was a good group of young men and a few young ladies. It was my privilege to try to be their teacher. But anyway, I went through some basics with them of trying to teach them. I tried to teach them how to read a ruler, tried to teach them how to balance a checkbook, just some basic things in life. And I found out that, well, like in the CAD class, I didn't know. They had the computers sitting there. They had student CADs loaded on them. I said, "Guys, listen, turn these things on and we're going to learn this together." They jumped in there. They were amazing, absolutely amazing. But I found out something very important, and that is, don't take the small things for granted. I'm going to try to go with the basic, because there are several people. Now, you're probably not one of them, but there are some people out there who've never built anything in their life, and they'd like to know, how do you build a building? And so if you'll stay with me through this process, I promise you that when we get done with this series of lessons, if you will, on how to build a building. Now, what we're building is a shed for this sawmill here. But the principles of what we're going to be doing apply to pretty much anything that you're going to build. Now, one of the first things we all need to take into consideration before we even drive the first nail or the first stop in the ground, location is very important. Not only the location, where you're going to put that building, but its orientation, how it's going to sit. Is the sun coming up and the sun going down? Does it matter? Those things, are they important to you? Is it going to be a whole lot of slope, a whole lot of grade, ground, dirt work, earth movement? Those things are important. Have you got a bunch of obstructions in the ground? Like utilities, or that's something that you're going to have to tiptoe around. What's in the ground is important. It is amazing, really, to a person who's not in construction and never done any building, how much work is really involved in site prep, just getting things ready. And a lot of times people don't take enough time in their site prep. You know, you probably, before you're going into a building, more than likely, you might not, but you probably know about what size structure you're going to be building, whether it's a house or a shed. A lot of times, this happens a lot of times, people will build a structure and they don't consider what's around the perimeter of that structure. And then they build it and all of a sudden they say, man, I wish I'd have graded out 6 more feet over here or 6 more feet over there. If I'd have done this or done that a little bit different. So where the footprint of your structure is important, but around the perimeter of that structure is important as well. Try to think through, okay, what's this going to look like when I get done? Well, let me just show you something over here. You see that building there? So let me give you a holistic view of what I'm going to be building here and how I'm going to be building it and where it's going to be built. Not really the how, but the where. We're just dealing with the plat right now. You see this structure over here? All right, it's facing a certain direction. I'm going to be building the sawmill shed right over here, basically where this sawmill is sitting. And what I want to do, just for looks, okay? I've got enough space here, it's not that important, but just so it looks good, I want this structure to be perpendicular to that structure over there. Now, 2 things that I would recommend before you ever start your project. This is my recommendation to make the project enjoyable for you, where you're not wasting time, energy, or money, okay? The first thing is make you a drawing. Now here's a basic drawing of what the sawmill shed is going to look like. Something like this. Now that's basically what the sawmill shed is going to look like. From that drawing, I can do a material list. Know how many posts I need, what my trusses and beams are going to be made out of, how many purlins I'm going to need, the length of all the materials, the rafters, the length of the tin, what kind of fasteners I'm going to need. This is an extremely simple project, very few items on the material list. But it's important to have your drawing, know what you're going to build before you start it. Something I try to do, and this is important, is in your mind's imaginations, you need to be able to see the end before you ever start. That's why on a set of architectural drawings for a house, they'll have the elevation drawings so that the builder and the homeowner can look at that. Now, I know most everything today's done on computers, but they still have the elevation drawings of north, south, east, and west, so you can look at the structure and you can see what it's going to look like. And then, of course, today, you can take that structure and do all kinds of renderings of it and put plants and trees and driveways and sidewalks and people walking around the house and, you know, just make it look like it, and then let you walk through the house and all the rooms. And just amazing what you can do today. But have you a drawing so you can see from the beginning what it's going to look like at the end. And then secondly, try to get all your materials up that you can, especially if you got a small project like I'm going to be doing over here. Try to have all your materials as much as you can. In my case, that's what I was cutting on today on those 2x6s. Those were the last things that I needed to cut to have ready to go. I have now all the materials that I'm going to need to build this building, except for the tin. I haven't ordered the tin yet. But anyway, I've got all my materials. So when I do get started in earnest of drilling holes, setting a post, getting this thing going, I've got everything that I need. I can just rock on with it. Down here, I've got my post ready to go. Starting here, I need some of those for beams. The open fence where the logs are going to be loaded onto the sawmill, that's what those trusses are for. These 2x6s that I milled this morning, I'll have to show you what those are going to be used for. That worked just fine. Probably a good thing to have this out of the way from where I'm wanting to put the building. And I think I got it out of the way. Okay, let me show you what I got here. I pulled a line off of the building that represents the orientation of the shop. See this line here? Then I went from this line up to that stop right there, and from this line up to that stop, 28 feet. So now I know that that yellow line right there is parallel with this white line back here. The building is parallel this end, and it will be perpendicular, or if you will, it's parallel with that building that way. All right, so the building, give or take, plus or minus 30 feet long. One of the things that was important to me, you know, I talked about the perimeter of a building. Are you going to have room to work around it if you got that space? Sometimes you're in a situation where you just don't have the space and you have to do what you have to do. But if you got the space, then what you want to do. I did the same thing. I'm going to show you here. I did the same thing with this building. Flattened out the surface, and of course, by code, a building's supposed to be from the edge of the building, in North Carolina anyway, from the edge of the building out, it's supposed to fall 10 feet away from the building. So that's what I've got here all the way around the building, is a 10-foot perimeter that falls away. Now, of course, with a sawmill shed, I do what I want to do. What's important, one of the things I want to have for the long run, is the ability to drive my tractor down this side of the building should I ever need to. I'm still debating whether to put up batter boards or not, just to show you how that works. I'm sort of leaning towards doing it for two reasons. Number one, it'd be a good education. Everybody needs to know what batter boards are, how they work, and when you're working by yourself, how much assistance they provide in squaring up your building. Takes a little more time. I may not do it on this, I don't know yet. We'll have to see. Like I say, rain's coming in and I'm gonna have to quit for today. But we'll see on that. Anyway, tomorrow, hopefully, we'll either get batter boards up or whatever. Anyway, we'll get our holes located and we'll at least drill our corner posts. We might go ahead and put them in before we set these other posts. That's a very strong possibility. So, I'll see you in the morning.